Welcome to episode 5 of Alex's Asylum. Got a very special guest today, Mr. Tyler Todt, also known as Ty Romper on Twitter. I was mentioning him before we started the recording that this may be the first time in world history that we have both been seen not only together, but wearing shirts. Tyler had a very sophisticated explanation as to why he is shirted right now. I have a less sophisticated explanation. I'll give it to you after he gives his. And for those who don't know Tyler, let him know who you are. Let him know what you're all about. Tyler's one of the most inspiring people that I constantly see, and many people constantly see on their Twitter timelines. He has a very positive message and outlook on the world, and it hasn't always been that way for him. So I'll give it to you, Tyler, to kind of set the stage for how you came to be the man you are today.
Thanks, brother. First off, man, it's a huge honor to be on here, Alex. You're a man that I've looked up to. I've been on Twitter for about 3 years now, and you're one that I found pretty early on, man. And you put out a lot of just great health content, mindset content, kind of breaking free from the matrix type content. And that's all been really impactful to me, man. So I want to say it's an honor to be on here, brother. And yeah, man, I'm a dad of three young kids. We have two 2-year-olds that we adopted a year ago. We have a biological daughter that's 7. Been married coming up on 9 years here, man. About to turn 40 here next year. And
don't look like it with your shirt off.
Yeah, the shirt thing is pretty funny, man. We mentioned before we came on. I guess I'll hit that before I get into my intro. But yeah, I'm pretty known. I'm not as brave as you. I'll tell you, man. My favorite thing on Twitter.
It's not bravery. Don't confuse lack of shame with bravery. These are two separate things.
When you went into Whole Foods just completely shirtless and just checked out, just like it was no big deal. Like I was like, that's very inspiring to me, man.
It was a necessity. I needed food. I didn't have a shirt. The funny thing was, I actually did have a shirt in my car. I just didn't realize it at the time. And so I was coming from the gym, which doesn't require me to wear a shirt. I'm like, I need to get lunch. And Whole Foods is on the way, so I'm just gonna stop. I don't have time to go home. Fuck it. Like I'm gonna jump in. It's gonna be so quick that by the time they say something to me, I'll be checked out. Which is kind of what happened. Sort of, what are you doing? I'm just grabbing 3 things. Don't worry about me. I'll be out of here in 3 minutes.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome, man. I love that. But yeah, I'm pretty much known as we live in a community of about 10,000 here in Henderson, Nevada. And I'm known as the crazy dad who's always walking around shirtless and shoeless, like playing with his kids year round, man. So that's pretty much what I'm known for around here too. But yeah, man, my life has really taken an awesome turn the last few years, man. It's really been intentional. About 5.5 years ago, I got really addicted to self-improvement. I was about to be divorced for a second time. I was just a low energy dude. I was 20 pounds heavier and I never lifted weights. Had a dad bod, just always complaining, just woe is me kind of thing, man. And I'll never forget one night I just got on my knees, man. And I said, this ain't going to be my life. I was 34 at the time. And I said, no matter what I have to do, if I have to spend money, get up early, no matter what the cost is, I refuse to make this the part of my life that there's the rest of my life. And so I wrote down a bunch of rules for myself that night. To be honest, I cried a little bit, man. I promised myself, I promised God, I was going to be a better man. I was going to be a better husband, a better father, more present, and create the kind of life that I wanted. For me, that started by getting up at 5 a.m. every single morning, getting my butt to the gym, giving a crap what I put in my body, no longer eating donuts and poison for breakfast. And really just, it started there with a lot of the physical stuff. Then it kind of translates to mindset and all these other things you get. I fired my company about 2 years ago now and worked for myself, which has been an amazing thing to break free from that corporate chains and kind of live life on my own terms now. So it's something that I'm just super grateful and am blessed. And it's pretty easy to be happy when you've worked really hard to kind of create that life that you want. And every day, man, I get to wake up and nobody gets to tell me to put a shirt and tie on or to sit in meetings about meetings or sit in traffic. I kind of get to create what I do every day. And so super grateful for that, man.
Well, that's been really awesome, and we can definitely get into how great your life is at the moment. But I think it would be helpful for the listening audience to kind of talk through the lows that you had prior to a couple years ago. And I'm just curious with the moment that got you on your knees praying to God. At what point did God come into your life, or was He transient in your life? How did that interplay with, possibly your downfall, hitting rock bottom, and then building yourself back up? What was the process? How long did that take? And what sort of activities were you doing, professionally, I know you had some financial challenges and a lot of challenges prior to your renaissance. So I think it would be good for
It's
the
a great
listening
question.
audience to know that things weren't always rosy for
Yeah,
Mr.
it's true,
Mr.
man.
Tyler Todd.
Yeah, it's a great question, man. I'll start by saying, I grew up in the church. My family went to church, but I don't think it was really my own. And then I went off to college at 18 and I was done with all that, right? Like my parents made me go to church when I was young, I think, but wasn't really mine. I hit it big in college, brother. I deposited $60 into an online poker site called Poker Stars. And within a year, man, I had made six figures and I dropped
Wow.
out of college. And so by 19 and a half, 20, I was a professional poker player. I started traveling the world. I started, at that point, I made like 300K plus back-to-back years.
So you were
Just got
thinking pretty highly of yourself.
really good, man.
Probably rightfully so.
But the ego was so out of control, bro. Like I bought a brand new sports car. I was, constantly just, I thought out, when you're 21 and all of a sudden, you grow up in a very low middle class family. Now all of a sudden, man, you're making 60K a month some months, or 40K this month, 25K this month. You just feel, I'm 21. My rent in college I'm sharing an apartment with three guys, man. I got to pay $300 a month. So I have $24,000 disposable income, right? So I denied myself nothing, to be honest. I went to the best nightclubs, restaurants, flew all over the world, kind of lived this crazy lifestyle, ended up getting married to a gal I met in Vegas when I was pretty young, like 23 and a half, 24. So, I lived that kind of fast lifestyle, I think, for many years. It came really crashing down, man, when I was like 27. And I just got a call from that girl who just said, "Hey, look, I'm leaving you. I'm cheating on you," right? I had a condo in Vegas at the time. I was out playing the World Series of Poker and I just got that call. So I literally went from feeling up here to really low, man. At that point I moved to Chicago and dude, it was another couple years of lows, man. I really got into like the nightclub scene there. I think I was so broken. I had nothing, no ego. I didn't lift weights. I didn't do anything. I was like just going to clubs 3-4 nights a week, playing poker a couple days a week, just kind of, hanging out with friends a ton. But I think people that would describe me in that season of life would say, yeah, Ty was real happy. But man, when the party ended, I would cry myself to sleep a lot of nights, right? Like I was just really empty inside. And so my renaissance kind of started there, man, where I just reached out to a former pastor, this man named Eddie Lowen, who I love to death. And I just remember this dude, he was fit. He was always happy. He had a good family. He had a lot of the things that I wanted. And I just emailed him one night. I was actually drinking, man, at like midnight. And I emailed him and I said, "Hey, man, I can't figure life out. I have a lot of money. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of things. Everybody tells me I should be really happy, but I'm not. What are your thoughts on it?" And he just said, "Hey, Ty, let's go get some coffee, And so we just started meeting for coffees and lunches and things like that. And he challenged me to say one prayer. He said, "Hey, God, if you're real, show yourself to me." And I didn't really have much faith at this time, but I respected him. And so I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And so then you fast forward about 3 weeks into me saying this prayer, man, and I'm on a run in Vegas after I got slaughtered in a poker session. I think I lost like 7-8K in this poker session. And so I go for a run and it's like midnight and I'm on some back alley. And at the time I have like an iPod shuffle. And all of a sudden, man, I got 10,000 songs on this iPod shuffle. And this song to this day, I have no idea how it got on there, but it's called "Holy is the Lord God Almighty." And this song pops on there. And again, I never listened to Christian music, no idea how that got on there, but I got pissed, to be honest. And I started shouting at God, "How could you let my life get here? I'm divorced. I'm this, I'm that, And I hit skip. And then like probably some Tupac song came on. I kept running. And then the very next song was "Holy is the Lord God Almighty" again. And I just dropped to my knees at that point and I said, "Hey, man, God, I don't understand really faith, or I don't really know what it's about, but I'm going to surrender my life to you and let you kind of be in the driver's seat." Now, I was 30 years old at that point. I didn't, it's not like it's just been a straight up ride from there, man. I started going to church a lot more. My awesome wife now came into my life shortly after that, and her faith is really big. And so that helped me kind of grow in my faith a lot, but I was still figuring it out. Right. And so then the first couple of years of marriage, man, I went from, being a pro poker player, having this freedom of time to, well, we got pregnant on the honeymoon. So I go back to school. Now I'm in school full time. I take a corporate job full time. We got this screaming newborn full time. Like life gets hard. I completely lose myself in fitness. That's when I gain the 20 pounds. I kind of become a shell of myself again. Yeah, I'm like a different Tyler everywhere I go, right? I'm happy church Tyler on Sunday. I'm miserable complaining Tyler every day at work. I'm just a different Tyler. And so it was actually my wife, man, that kind of sparked the biggest change one night. Bro, I'd been laying on the couch all day. This is embarrassing to admit. I'd eaten a whole bag of Cheetos and Doritos and ordered a pizza and just watched football for like literally 10 hours on a Sunday. And like my wife and daughter were playing outside. My wife kept coming back in and being like, hey, Ty, do you want to come play with us? And I was determined to be miserable. I'm like, don't you know I worked a 6-day week? I was just complaining nonstop.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, man, she came in after we put our daughter to bed and she just said, hey, Ty, like, I love you. And I hope you know you're not stuck. And if your life is not where it wants to be, like, I'm your teammate. I'll help you get there, And bro, like, she just left the room and like something rose up in me. Like, man, I'm not living how I'm supposed to live. Like, I don't have the body I'm supposed to have. I don't have the mind I'm supposed to have. I don't have the soul I'm supposed to have. I don't have the bank account I'm supposed to, like, I'm not living how I'm supposed to live. And so, I wrote down a bunch of rules for myself that night, things that I haven't broken in 5 years now. When that alarm goes off, we don't snooze. We get up and we attack. I plan my night the day before, so I just wake up and execute that next day. I'm going to put healthy things into my body every single day, just kind of adhering to a lot of these little rules, man. And so it's been like a 3-step forward, 2-step back kind of thing there for the first couple of years. But then really like connecting with, I know, Zach Hommel really well. I hired him as my life coach. And that accelerated my life, my marriage, my faith, so much more. Connecting and really being mindful of my inputs. I only follow champions like Zach, like Zuby, like yourself, like a lot of these strong personality guys that I feel like I can learn from all the time. And so I'm really only in community with people like that now. And that's really accelerated my growth a lot too. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I am today. That's a long answer, but that's how I got there.
That's amazing, and I think you probably skipped over, and I'm guessing here, piecing together things that I recall you tweeted, but then things that I know about Poker Stars. Did you lose a bunch of money when they got shut down? Is that why you had to switch into getting a corporate job?
And to be honest, that's why if I'm really honest, I think that's why I probably got divorced, right? Like we were not in a great relationship. Our values didn't align a lot, but I was making a lot of money and that covered up a lot of things.
Sure.
I think, but they called it Black Friday. There was just one day, man, where I just logged on and it said, Department of Justice has restricted. You cannot get on this site.
Mm-hmm.
And so I literally went from making like $200K a year plus to just, I can't make money. Now I don't have a degree. Now and so then for like the next
there was no other option for online game poker at that point.
You had to move out of the country. I had many buddies who did. They relocated to like Costa Rica, to Canada. There's a bunch of groups of people that went and got houses together, but I was married. I didn't want to leave all my family and just go out of the country. So I played live poker for like a year, man. And to be honest, like financially it was okay. But I went from working, like my schedule when I played online poker was I'd wake up in the morning, I'd drink coffee, I'd play a couple thousand hands. Then I'd golf or tennis, do whatever I wanted for a few hours. I'd come back in the afternoon. I'd play a couple thousand hands. Maybe I'd study a half an hour at night. That was my schedule 5-6 days a week. Then live poker, man, there was no casinos near me with big games. So I had to fly to Vegas constantly to play, had to fly to different parts all over the country to even play in games that were worth playing. And man, that just became like, it became worse than a job. You're sitting I played 24 games at a time on Poker Stars. I could only play one game at a time, sitting here with a bunch of kind of really negative. I don't know, man. The live poker scene is really, to me, I loved online because it provided the freedom that I liked. I didn't really like having to sit at this one table for 12 hours, and just, I don't know, wasn't the lifestyle I liked.
Yeah. How much money did you have on Poker Stars that was not accessible on Black Friday?
I believe like 120,000.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah, I had buddies, man, who Poker Stars, though, to their credit, got us all our money back within a few months.
Oh, you did? Okay. I figured it was just gone.
No, I got that back. But I'll tell you what, man, I had buddies. There was a site called Full Tilt who had 95% of their net worth on there.
And they didn't get it back.
No, it took 2.5+ years, if any. There was a big legal. I mean, I had friends that were multimillionaires. They kept money on there and a site called NetTeller at the time. You could transfer between NetTeller, between these poker sites. Mm-hmm. And they literally went from being worth $3 million to, bro, I got $8K in my checking account now.
They kept all of their money on these online casinos.
Bro, it's just everything the government touches. It's like I could get into such a big rant on that, but like it's this guy named Bill Frist. He's not even in Congress anymore. He championed this bill but he left it legal to bet on horses because him and his buddies bet horses, right?
I
And
went to school with this kid.
Did you really?
Yeah, he's a Nashville guy. He has a lot of buildings named after him in Nashville, and so his son, I believe, was a SAE at Vanderbilt at the same time I was, overlapping years at the very least.
Really, man. Yeah. So this is the guy that championed that bill, man. And they ran it through. They put it on the end of a port security bill, so nobody could vote no. And overnight it became illegal, probably because this guy named Sheldon Anderson, who owns a bunch of live casinos here in Vegas, didn't want people playing online, right? He wanted to make you come to his properties and spend money at his properties. So it's so much corrupt. That was when it first started to open my eyes, the corruption in government, man.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, looking back, I'll be honest, I'm grateful for it. I'm glad that I'm not still a poker pro. I love what I do a whole lot more now. And I honestly still play poker a decent amount. That's why we moved to Vegas, a few years ago. So it's still a very profitable side hustle for me. You can play legally online now in only 4 states. Nevada is one of them. So that's pretty much a big reason why we chose here.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting that a lot of online gambling, at least traditionally, has been restricted, illegal, or a lot of gambling in general has been restricted or illegal. But the 2 areas of gambling that are not restricted, for the most part, outside of age, are government lotteries and the stock market.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you are a gambling addict, you have 2 choices: enrich the government or enrich Wall Street.
So true, man. You got to always play by their rules, man. And it is funny that they promote the lottery, they promote all these things, right? And that was kind of my thing, is it's a game of skill. I mean, there's a reason, I've been playing for 19 years now. I've had 1 losing month in 19 years. That's because I work really hard at it. I studied off the table. I worked on my mindset. I worked on, controlling my emotions. It's a game of skill. Whereas the lottery, man, they talk about, just gambling.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild how they justify those things.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you talk about poker being a game of skill. I think a lot of people who look at professional gamblers, they don't really understand it. They look at gambling as something that requires a lot of luck. But then if you can string together all these months in a row where you're winning, clearly there's not a luck element to it. And then I pair that with the personality. You're always exuding positivity, even in the face of negativity, which you've faced frequently, like everybody does, particularly through COVID lockdowns. I would think that a lot of people who follow you might not realize that there's a foundation that you've intentionally laid in order to put yourself in a position to be positive through negativity. Would you mind talking about the foundation that you lay that puts you in a position to be the man that you want to be, that you weren't laying earlier in your life when you weren't the man that you wanted to be?
Man, that's a great question. You ask great questions, man. It's obvious how smart you are, man. But yeah, I think when I talked about those rules earlier that I set for myself, a big one that I set too is to create a morning routine. So I have done the same exact thing every single day when I wake up. The first thing I do is I got a couple glasses of water. I'm big into water, man, as everybody is on Twitter, right? But I chug 2 glasses of water. While I'm doing that, I write at least 3 things I'm grateful for. Today was like day number 2,108 in a row without missing a day that I've done this. It takes me like 2 or 3 minutes. I literally write, it's kind of almost turned into a journal of the day before. This morning's was that, like, my wife is the greatest teammate. Even when I was kind of sick or under the weather the last couple of days, she took most of the lion's share of the kids and just helped so much. That my son gave me a big old bear hug, man, last night. And, like, just those little moments in life that I'm so grateful for. And then I spend like a minute every morning just kind of in silence. You call it meditation, you call it prayer, whatever you want. But I literally visualize in my mind, I say, thank you for the gift of another day. There's somebody today, man, that's in the hospital that got a bad diagnosis that would kill for the challenges I'm going to get to face today, And so I want to have that mindset and make a choice, which I believe it is a choice, to always choose joy, choose positivity, choose gratitude, just choose to see life through that lens. And I think by working on it the last 5 years of that daily gratitude practice, the same way we train our muscles at the gym, right? Like, you go and you get stronger, you can train your mind to see the good and be more positive. And I've seen that effect. I remember it was like maybe 90 days into doing this. And my daughter woke me up. At that time, she was maybe like 19 months. And she woke me up crying, having a bad dream. And my first thought was, man, at 2 a.m, bro, I'm so grateful I'm her dad. Like, I'm the only guy in the world that gets to go, like, tell her a story, tuck her back in, make sure she falls asleep. She trusts me to make sure it's okay. And before that, if I had not been doing that gratitude practice, my thoughts would have been, bro, this sucks. I'm awake. Tomorrow I got a busy day at work. This is going to ruin it. But my mind, like, kind of default chose to see the good.
Mhm.
And so I think, those little daily habits matter a lot. And like you said, laying that foundation, that's the foundation for me, is gratitude. A really wise guy said, you can't be grateful and grumpy at the same time. And so if you feel yourself grumpy, write a few things you're grateful for, meditate on that, focus on that. You'll flip that switch pretty quick.
No, I think that's definitely true. And my experience in sports, before I was a fitness guy, I was a baseball player.
Mm.
And as a baseball player, you go into slumps, and a lot of times you go into slumps is because you're training incorrect neurological pathways. So you're training your hands to kind of drop. Let me get this in the camera, to drop instead of come straight to the ball, or a more direct pathway to the ball. And the way you reverse that is by practicing in the batting cage to have your hands take a more direct trajectory to the ball. So you have to override the neurological adjustments that your mind has made that lead to actions that you don't want to make with your hands and with your body. Mm. And the way you emotionally respond to stimulus, like your daughter crying at 2 a.m., can be retrained in a very similar fashion. A lot of times when people don't have the background in physical training, like Alexander Cortez talks about mental obesity being sort of similar to physical obesity. And I think it's very true, is once you realize you can train one area to elicit different and superior outputs, you can train the mental area to elicit superior outputs as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome, man. What position did you play, Alex? Because I've seen a couple of your videos in college baseball.
I was a shortstop growing up.
Nice.
I was recruited as a shortstop, but then when I got to college, my coaches didn't think I was athletic enough to play shortstop in the SEC. And so I got moved. I played third base my freshman year, started the back half of the season as a Vanderbilt third baseman. And then a guy named Pedro Alvarez, who was the second overall pick of the 2008 draft, came along, and he was going to be our third baseman in 2006. And so 2006, I moved from third base to second base, where I played my sophomore year, my junior year, my senior year, as well as mostly professionally. Professionally, I played a little bit of second, a little bit of third, and shortstop as well.
Nice. Yeah, baseball, I always think too, is a game. I love baseball growing up, man, and I was a big St. Louis Cardinal fan. We always went to a bunch of games growing up, but it's an awesome game, like you talk about too, where the greatest players fail 7 out of 10 times. And so really developing that mindset, right? Like, you're a Hall of Famer, dude. If you succeed 3 out of 10 times, you're an all-star, So that's a tough mindset to go up there and think like, yeah, I'm going to fail 7 out of 10 times, but I just have to keep working, keep adjusting.
Well, but that's actually not the mindset that people who only fail 7 out of 10 times have. So I tell people in baseball, the reason why baseball players have the stereotype of being arrogant and cocky is because you need to be a good baseball player. And what that means is, if you're going to get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you need to think you're going to get a hit at least 9 out of 10 times, right? Because if you don't think you're going to get a hit, your timing is going to be off. You're not going to have the intention in your swing to execute it properly. The timing is going to be all misaligned. You're not going to get the extension through the ball. And extension through the ball, meaning you're not pulling your bat off the ball. You're keeping your pathway through the ball. The only way you keep your pathway through the ball is if you have a very high degree of confidence and certainty that something good is going to happen in the background. This is very similar to entrepreneurship, where a good entrepreneur might be successful half the time, probably a little bit more than 10%, which is the often quoted number, but maybe half the time. But in order for you to be successful half the time, you need to think you're going to succeed every time.
It's true. Yeah.
That's a good point. You have to be able to suspend rational thinking from the outcome. You need to put yourself in a position where you think that the rules that apply to everybody else don't apply to you. And there's a reason why a lot of the best baseball players just aren't good at math, and there's also a reason why there's such a divide, and there has been such a divide with the analytics guys, with the Ivy League analytics people trying to tell baseball guys, hey, you're supposed to play this way. And the baseball guys pushing back saying, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, one of the reasons is it's incredibly difficult to be a very good baseball player if you're numerically literate. right? Because if you're numerically literate, you literally think, well, I'm probably going to get out. And if you think you're probably going to get out, you are going to get out, and you're going to get out a lot more than 70% of the time.
Yeah. That's a great point, man. That actually aligns perfectly with poker, man, because you can play poker perfectly, make every decision correctly, probably the same way you can hit a stinging line drive, but it just goes right at somebody, right? And in poker, you can play the hand perfectly, get it all in as a 90% favorite. The guy just hits that miracle card, you lose. But again, I think to myself every time when I go in, I'm going to win every session I'm going to play. That's very illogical. That can't happen. Math dictates that cannot happen.
Right.
But I just ignore that side. And I have this deep self-belief, right? That every time I play, I'm a great player and I'm going to win. But that's a very, I appreciate you saying that, because that resonated a lot with me where I play poker, where I guess to probably be good at anything, you probably need that mindset,
Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why, I don't know how much we want to dive into politics here, but I think one of the reasons why there is and always has been and always will be some degree of a left-right divide, even if you throw out a lot of the insanity of the last 10 years, is the most successful people are going to have some degree of arrogance to their mindset. Now, you can't be only arrogant. You need to be humble, right? Because if you're completely arrogant, you're never going to learn from anybody. But if you have a higher degree of arrogance and self-belief than math dictates you should, number one, that's taught as incorrect in school, right? Because it's like, this person is delusional. He's not able to grapple with the quantified limitations that he has, the statistical limitations that he has. Well, the most successful people don't listen to that. They think, well, these might be what the numbers say, but that's true for everybody else. I'm different. So in order to be successful, you do, in my view, in my experience, need to think that you're special. Okay, so what does that mean when you see successful people? Well, the unsuccessful people are going to think they're arrogant. They're going to think they don't deserve it, and they're going to think they got lucky because the unsuccessful people are so cued in on the statistical likelihood of success that they think that anybody who was successful, who overcame all these odds, well, they had to have gotten lucky because look at how rare it is.
Man, that's such a powerful and great point, man. And so it's been about 37 months now. I had 0 Twitter followers, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I had done is I had seen Zach Hommel, Jack Colson, you, Zuby, a lot of these guys that were putting out these great positive messages and making money on that and coaching and helping other people. And I remember telling several of my buddies and colleagues, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to create, it might take me 2-3 years. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but if other people can do it, I can hire Zach, I can study, all I need to do is bridge that gap of knowledge, and there's no reason I can't do it.
Right.
So I had every single person else except my wife, I think, tell me, you're crazy. You can't do that. You got to make a living off Twitter. Nobody does that,
right.
You can't do that. And I think that's exactly the point you were just making. That's why is they're kind of stuck. You can call it whatever you want, like in that kind of matrix mindset, right? Of like, these are the rules you have to play by. You're not special. The math says you have to follow this path, work till you're 62, do it. And I just didn't accept that, I guess. And I do think other people have said, why do you think you're special? Why do you think, well, I don't know. Maybe I just, from poker, I learned to not always listen to the math, right?
Well, it's also a coping mechanism that people have because what's interesting, so studies on consumer psychology show that people are actually happier when they have fewer choices. So one of the benefits of capitalism is there's 50 different ice creams that you can choose from, or 31 different ice creams if you go to Baskin Robbins or something like that. People are happier with like 6 because when they have too many choices, it stresses them out. They think, am I optimizing this properly? Am I going with the right thing? Is there something better? And this is also true with career development, where most people, not everybody, not us, but most people are happier when they don't realize that there's another way to do it. And one of the ways this manifests itself is in their shooting down the hopes and dreams of those around them. Because by shooting down your hopes and dreams, what they're actually doing is they're reinforcing to themselves that they're on the only path that they could possibly be on. So they don't feel bad. They have no sour grapes about it, or they have no feelings of resentment or remorse for the decisions that they make. And to basically mitigate that pain, they're holding you down.
That makes a lot of sense, man. And it's funny because I remember in my first year or 2 of corporate, I actually mentioned to my wife, I wish I could almost just be happier, like living this court. Like these guys that I go to work with, some of them were just very happy. Like they were content to go in,
Mhm.
eat the donuts in the morning, like just have the meetings. Like, and I'm like just going crazy in there, man. That's not my environment. And I remember saying to her, I wish that I could almost just be happy, be normal, so to speak, And then
Mhm.
now I think just the opposite, right? Like I think I was created to just do something much different. Doesn't mean one's better, one's worse, right? Like if you're in that corporate job and you love it, hey, that's awesome, man. Good for you, right? But I do think a lot of people do what you said, project their stuff onto you. I saw that a lot, man. When I told my boss I was leaving, I mean, his jaw hit the floor, man. And he said, once you go down, you'll never come back. And I said, I know, man, that's the point. Like I wish you the best, but a
Yeah.
lot of people just, they see life in that straight path. And then I think there's other people like us who, then we see a lot of gray, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't feel limited by anything. I think if you told me at this point, hey man, I want you to become the best ice fisherman in the whole world. Like, I think I could do it. I just hire coaches. I'd put in the work. I've never ice fished before. I don't like the cold, but I'd figure it out, right? Like, I'd become I think that I could do pretty much anything I'd want to do at this point. But I think that probably sort of pisses some people off,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. It's a threat. It's a threat because most
Right.
people feel like, well, this is my territory, particularly people who are ice fishermen, right? So you will piss the most people off with that type of mindset. Will be the people who actually put work in. And the people who've actually put work in will say, well, no, you can't do that because I put the work in. And this is my limitation, putting the work in. So there's just no way. He's delusional. But it reminds me of a quote Muhammad Ali, I believe it was Muhammad Ali, said about golf. They asked him, Mr. Ali, are you good at golf? He's like, oh, I'm the best. I just haven't played yet.
I love that, man. I love it. You probably have that same self-belief too, right? Where like I kind of see it in my life where anything I choose to be really good at, I made a decision to just be a really good father and a really good husband and be really present. And I work on those things a lot, right? Like when I
Mhm.
find myself distracted on the phone or like I'll literally audit myself on those things every month. I'll come back. I wanted to get better at creating sides of income, like
Right,
4.5, 5 years ago, man, I had one income. We had one
right.
pay. Last month I got paid 14 ways, 15 ways, like
Mhm.
I feel like anything I set my mind to, and I think this applies to anybody who's willing to learn and set aside that ego. You're going to suck at first. I
Right,
sucked at first at everything I've done. The first time I
right,
played poker, I had no clue what I was doing. 12 million hands later, I'm pretty darn good, right? Like the first
right.
time I tweeted, it was garbage. Nobody saw it, right? Now I tweet to 10 million people a month, right? Like you stay consistent with those things. And if you have a long-term vision, I believe almost anybody, you probably have to have a base level IQ, right? But
Sure.
almost anybody can achieve pretty much anything they want if they have a long enough time horizon.
Well, emotional regulation is key because one thing about a lot of things in life are numbers games, and so the only way you win numbers games is by having a viable strategy, but also the emotional resilience to overcome inevitable failure. And
Mm.
so I think it requires both, and I don't think that actually everybody can have that emotional resiliency. I think everybody can get better at what they have, but I do think that there is some degree of temperament, like some baseline temperament that is
Do you
necessary.
think you can develop that though? The same way you can develop muscles or your mindset? Do you think you
I
can
think I think you
develop
can
that?
cultivate it, but just like muscles, not everybody can be Mr. Olympia,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So
That's a
so
good point. Yeah.
yeah, so everybody can get better, but not everybody can be the best. Is
Yeah.
basically how temperament and mindset goes. But my experience in self improvement is I think that I've developed the temperament to where I can get 2 standard deviations better at anything I do. And what I mean by that is if you're familiar with a Z score, right? This is like middle school, high school math, something like that. If you're 1 standard deviation below the mean of something that has a normal distribution, you're in like the 15th percentile, 16th percentile, meaning 84 out of 100 people are better than you at this one thing. But
Mm.
I found in my life, if that's my starting point, if 84 out of 100 people are better than me at one thing, I can work my ass off to where I'm better than about 84 out of 100 people. So
Mm.
I can not only get to the mean where I'm average, but I can get to 1 standard deviation above the mean. If I start with something where I'm average at 50% of people are better than me, I can work my ass off to where I'm better than 97 or 98 out of 100 people. And if I
Mm.
start with something that I'm better already naturally than 85% of the population, with enough work, I can get to where I'm better than 99.8% of the population at that one thing. So you are limited
Mm.
by your starting point, but what you do to cultivate yourself based on your starting point to improve upon your starting point is far more beneficial than what your actual starting point is.
And I love that, bro. That's a fire. That's something I'm gonna probably watch back and take some notes on and look more into. I love that because I think then my first thought is, okay, we all need to be searching for those things that we're naturally pretty gifted at, right? Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm a. If you look back in all my first grade, second grade, third grade, Tyler's a natural leader. Every teacher said, and I led in the wrong way. I led my friends to the bars for a really long time, right? And some of these other ways, but now I feel like I get to lead guys to be better husbands, better fathers, get fit, get all these right things, right? Better for your life. But yeah, I think I probably started a little above the mean with poker. I've always had a strategic mind. I remember being 8 and 10 years old and like just watching games and breaking down in my head. I've always had a strategic mind like that. Bro, you put me in a bank, man. And, I started forward standard deviation. So I could work hard, but this stuff didn't interest me, like
Right.
I think a big probably part of being successful in life is finding those things that you're already a little bit above average at, and then you put the work in too. And that's probably where a lot of the magic happens, right?
Yeah. And this reminds me of a video that I put out, actually, it was about a year and a half ago. It was in 2021 that I remember you commented on, where I was in San Diego. I was visiting my best friend from college who works on the San Diego Padres staff. And I was talking about the various things that I've been successful at in my life and how they're all interrelated. So, I got a scholarship to play baseball at Vanderbilt. I got drafted to play for the Rockies for a couple years. I worked at a hedge fund for a couple years, a year and a half after that. Then I worked at Google for 6 years. Then I worked at a cryptocurrency exchange for 3 years. Then I started working for myself. And a lot of people might say, wow, those are so many different things that you've succeeded at, and I haven't done any of those. So how can I compare myself to you? And what a lot of people don't realize is the more doors you open, the more doors will open for you. So I would have never gotten drafted to play professionally if I never got a scholarship to play at Vanderbilt. I would have never had the opportunity to work at the hedge fund that I worked at had I not played at Vanderbilt. I would have never been able to elevator pitch my way into Google had I not had my baseball experience and my hedge fund experience. I would not have been able to talk my way into an even higher paying cryptocurrency job had I not gotten that experience at Google. And I would never have been able or had the motivation to build out my Twitter following had I not gotten into the crypto industry that relies so heavily on Twitter. So all doors that I've opened made it possible for me to open a subsequent door. And that's what happens when you win at things. You start recognizing patterns and shortcuts, and your second win is always easier than your first, and your third win's always easier than your second. But if you haven't got that first win, you'll never develop the habits that are necessary to get the second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Man, that's super powerful. Yeah, I think momentum is such a powerful thing too, like you said. And I think sadly, a lot of guys, man, they kind of quit living their life at 25, 28. They settle, right? They get the girl,
Yeah.
they get the house, they get the corporate job, and they kind of just get used to staying mediocre. They don't challenge themselves to keep getting these wins and keep growing, whether that be in their body, their mind, their soul, their job, their finances, whatever that is, right? They just kind of settle. And I think you make a good point there where if you don't get that first win, man, you don't get to get the second, and you don't get to keep getting to these higher levels. And so, you gotta start with the first one, man. Zach Hummel's always big on telling me you can't skip steps, Ty.
Yeah.
You want to be here, but you got to put the work in to get all the way there,
Right. And I think a lot of the reasons why people settle is because it's more comfortable, obviously. But when people settle, it limits their pain, right? Because the initial step of not settling is realizing that you're not fulfilling your potential. And that's painful for a lot of people. And the first few months of starting anything new after you realize that, hey, there's something that everybody else is doing or some other people are doing and I'm not doing it, it's challenging because it's all work and no play. When you start a Twitter account, it's all work and no play. You're tweeting to a wall for your first several months. And you're like, this is a great tweet. It got 1 like and 7 impressions.
My own, man. Like I went back and liked it after 4 hours because nobody else did, right?
Right. And so in order to overcome that initial hurdle where it's all work, no dopamine reward, you have to have a mindset that, in my view, is a little bit delusional, where you can see something materializing that nobody else can see but you, or hopefully your supportive partner can help you get through that tough time, to where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Once you've done it once, you realize that that's how everything works. You have no progress the first 90 days. It's all work. And if you quit on day 30, day 60, day 90, all you'll have done is train your mind to expect all work with no reward. You'll develop learned helplessness. You'll become much less likely to try again. And if you do try again, you'll be much more likely to quit early, which is why I tell people that trying and failing is actually worse than not trying at all, because it trains yourself to realize, to believe that you can't do it. And you always want your mind, your effort to be rewarded. And so this is one reason why I like training on a regular basis, is because life is chaotic. A lot of things can go bad that you can't control, but you can control what you do in the gym for the most part, not completely, but you can control it a lot better than a lot of other things in life. And it's important to always remind yourself that your work will be rewarded. If you can remind yourself that your work will be rewarded, you'll continue to be a hard worker. And if you continue to be a hard worker on the right things, you will be successful.
That's right, man. That's perfectly said. That the gym is the first thing that obviously pops into my mind, especially being the new year, right? Where we're going to see a lot of people, man, show up for 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 7 weeks. They're fired up, right? Then the motivation falls off. They quit. And then they'll be in the same spot next year. And it's like, yeah, I always, I was on a men's group call last night and I told the guys, just visualize yourself 6 months from now. Keep a long-term vision. This will just become a part of who you are, right? Like you're in pain right now. I get it. You're sore. You haven't lifted weights in 18 years. Now you're lifting again. You're sore. Get a reward for that pain. Keep going, And I do think so many people, they hit that initial brick wall, whatever that is, and that's it. I lay down. And then you're right. They train their mind to just lay down. I think you can almost separate people into just two classes, right? Like the people that hit that wall and they decide I'm going over it, around it, through it, whatever I got to do. I'm going to keep going till I get that reward. Or the people that say, man, it's too hard. My life, I guess, isn't that bad. I'm just going to go back to this,
Totally agree. So I think this has been an awesome chat, Tyler. I
and it
would
went fast.
I think we hit all the bases. For those who want to learn more about you, obviously your Twitter handle, Ty Romper, how can our listening audience get to know Tyler better?
Yeah, man, come hang it at Twitter. That's where I post, probably way too much every day, 5, 6, 7 tweets a day over there. But I really have a good engaged community. Just went over 100,000 people over there, which is pretty awesome. And just past 5,000 subscribers on YouTube too. I'm putting out 3-4 pieces of content every week there. Starting to even do some poker play and explain stuff over there, kind of get inside my mindset of how I approach the game. And just all kinds of things, man, on fatherhood, fitness, marriage, a lot of these things. So just give me a shout, man. Give me a follow on Instagram as well. Everything's Ty Romper or Tyler Todt, my name. But yeah, man, just come give me a shout or what's up. I'm always happy to connect with people all over. Super grateful for, I think it's so cool, Alex, that, bro, if we lived like 40 years ago, I'd just still be at the bank miserable, right? Because I wouldn't have access to you, Zuby, Ryan Stevens, Zach Hommel. Like I've learned so much from the community on Twitter, the people. Like I got a 4.0 when I went back to school, to be honest, man. Bro, I've applied maybe 2% of that stuff I learned,
Right.
The things I've learned on Twitter, on from the people that I follow about money, about mindset, about health, nutrition, fitness, recovery, marriage, faith, all the things that really actually matter to me. It's just invaluable. So, come connect with me there, man, and let's all grow together. That's always my thing. I'm learning every day on there. I want to keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. 2023, as Tyler mentioned, you have so many pieces of technology at your fingertips that the people who have this type of mindset that Tyler has, where I can accomplish anything, I just need to learn it. They're going to have a lot of pathways to learn that they didn't have 40, 50 years ago. But the people who want to believe in their own limitations, who want to believe that they're stuck, no matter how many tools they have at their disposal, they're always going to find a reason to validate their underlying assumptions. So you have to ask yourself, do you want to be a man of growth? Do you want to be a woman of growth? Do you want to be a person who's able to transcend boundaries? Or do you want to be stuck the way you are, like most people will be, right? Only a few percent of people actually develop the mindset tools that are necessary to escape their present situation. And you have to believe that you're one of the lucky ones that has those skills, or you're going to be stuck.
That's right, man. Everything you believe is a choice. That's a powerful concept, right? When you really think about it and break it down, every single thing you believe is a choice.
Yeah. All right, Tyler. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, bro. Thanks, man.